Howdy, folks. My name is Janaki,
And this is Madame Bathsheba.
and together we are Catomancy Tarot. So, hello, welcome to a gray day in Michigan, early Sagittarius season. I don't know how you guys are feeling out there, but I'm feeling a little grim. It's grim out there. I don't want to get into it so much, but I thought to combat some of that, I would just do a fun, silly little tarot tag. That's what I was in the mood for, so that's what we're gonna do today. So the tag we're doing is I've got a deck for that. This is one that's been around and floating around for a while. I've seen it around. I think it was started by Feeding My Soul 1212, so this is a VR. And yeah, let's just get into it. I might hop around some of these prompts, but here we go. All right. The idea with this tag is just to, play around and have a bit of fun. So there are 16 prompts in this one, so a lot of different stuff going on. And I'm gonna talk about them in my own order a little bit. I've grouped them together to make more sense for me. So the first batch of prompts I'm gonna respond to are the favorite uh, 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 genres and movies and TV shows and stuff like that. So the first question is your favorite movie genre. So I'm a big old nerd, and I really enjoy. I like fantasy sci-fi classic. I'm really into like when movies go big on world building and like they really create a world. And so the deck I have for that um is the Dragon Tarot. This is the one by Nigel Suckling, and I modified this deck, so I rebacked it in this kind of like scaly looking teal green color, and then I did some really fun edges. And so this is a deck that kind of feels like those epic fantasy worlds. It's totally got some uh, like Lord of the Ring vibes, especially in the pips, which, love those movies. I feel like I watch them at least once a year. um, but yeah, I also, so for all of these, I'm like a big sci-fi fantasy nerd, and sometimes I have trouble finding good sci-fi and like fantasy decks that I really enjoy. But this is one of the ones that I think it's really fun. I think the pips are really beautiful. Like the dragons and the dragon people are really cute. I actually like the really weird chunky borders. I love the font. The only thing I didn't love were the backs, and then I kind of I did my thing and I like them a lot better now. And like it's still like weirdly really beautiful. um and yeah, so this is my and the other thing that's fun about this one is if you connect all of the pips sequentially in a row, it all kind of forms one contiguous scene, which I think is a really, really fun touch. Um, so that's my favorite like genre. Yeah, I just love I'm a fan of escapism, and I just want to kind of like fall into a world. So I like when, movies take a really big swing at like really big world building. And that's the same for like TV shows also, things like I don't know. Yeah, I just like I like some really imaginative worlds. So the next prompt is usually like your favorite movie. I'm 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 more into TV shows. I have a million favorite TV shows, and I'm more of a book person. Like I'll binge audiobooks and I'll binge TV shows, but I find myself like it's really hard for me to sit down and watch a movie. I think it's because that I actually like the longer format storytelling. So like in a movie, you've got what, maybe 2 hours to get like attached to characters and then it's all over. And I prefer just kind of like I just prefer the longer format storytelling. So instead of picking a favorite movie, also because I feel like some of my favorite movies are would be in the fantasy world, and I feel like I just showed a deck for that, so I thought I would do something different and change it to my favorite book. And my favorite book, we're still kind of it's speculative fiction. It's a bit of fantasy, but it's this book Piranesi by Susanna Clark. And I love it. And I think it just got signed, or I think they're going to make a movie out of it, and I'm actually really nervous about it because I love it so much. And it's the same director who did the like the animated film Coraline. I think that's correct. So it's gonna be really interesting. We'll see. But the deck I picked for that is this one, which is the Seashell Oracle. This is one of the Broccoli Magazine decks, and it's really beautiful. And the setting for this book is one of the things that I think really like the setting is itself a character in this book, and it takes place in this place called the House, which is this like labyrinthine series of like classical buildings and this like maze of great halls that all connect and have the sea just kind of like sweeping through them. So it's kind of like a series of ancient ruins in which we have our Piranesi is inhabiting and kind of documenting. And it's written through a series of like field notebooks, which, as an anthropologist, I think it's just so beautiful. It's so great. I love the world building in that. And so this is a deck that I think matches up so well with that book. I think it's really, really wonderful. It came out during the pandemic, and I've listened to that audiobook like over and over several times, and it's so good, and uh, I really adore it. And it's a really just fascinating. It's also like not like anything I've ever read before. Um, so it's really wonderful for that. And I just think about the house and all of its beauty and all of the kind of like the ruins and the sea sweeping through the great halls and yeah, I just like the statues are also kind of used as an oracle, which I think is really interesting. Like he'll look around and see a particular statue in a particular niche and kind of use that as kind of like a way to derive some like divinatory significance. And you can tell that Susanna Clark is like familiar with like especially Lenormand or other things like that, um, by the way she crafts that in particular. So yeah, I think for me this is like a near perfect match. So that's my instead of movie, it's a movie to be, and my favorite book. So the next one is my favorite. I believe my favorite book genre. So, as I mentioned, I'm a sci-fi fantasy nerd. Love some speculative fiction, and there's like a lot of like subgenres within all of that. And I'm having a hard time. I would love to find my perfect like sci-fi deck, and I haven't found it yet. Um, and there's a lot of things that are kind of like very cyberpunk, which I appreciate, but it's not quite the aesthetic. Um, and so the deck I picked for this, I ended up going with an Afrofuturism deck. This is Menzel's Tarot. I have the second edition. I think this deck is now up. He just kickstarted a new deck, and I believe I don't remember what edition he has. Maybe it's the second edition, but there's one that's now available on Make Playing Cards, I want to say. Um, Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I think it was out of print for a while, but now it's back. Um, and so Afrofuturism is a really fun genre to kind of uh, just play around with what the genre of science fiction can be. For a long time, like the world of science fiction was like a white man's game, and that's really no longer the case, which I love. Like I have a hard time like reading old school science fiction now, just because there's so many like wonderful and interesting contemporary authors who are just bringing so much more to the table. Um, so one of my all-time favorite. It's kind of like a science fantasy. um, is the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. That's one I really love. I was also really blown away by this other little series. This little series called Binti by Ndendi Okorafor. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but they're short, but it's just a short trilogy, but it's another one that's it plays around with Afrofuturism a lot, and I think it's really wonderful. And I like the kind of the world building that goes on in this deck, where you can really kind of imagine that all of these places are taking place kind of in the same world, um, and the people and the kind of like the celestial out of this worldness. It's just it's really beautiful, and I'm really glad that I believe it's available again, so more people can kind of like experience this. And so it's a really fun one. And this is one that like I'm so happy to have in my collection. I don't use it a lot for personal readings, but like every once in a while I'll bring it out for that kind of that special person, or for when you need like a really particular kind of reading. But I just, yeah, I love the world building in this one for sure. So that is Manzel's Tarot. And then the next prompt is your favorite TV show. And I have so many. So this one was really hard for me. Like I'm a fan of like fantasy shows. Um, Anything supernatural, really. I'm a fan of sci-fi shows. My favorite sci-fi show of all time is The Expanse, but I can't find a good deck for that kind of thing. So I decided, and since I already showed a fantasy deck, I figured I would go old school with this one and pick my favorite, like, old school show that I watch. It's my like all-time comfort show, and I know a lot of you guys love it too. It's Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I still love it. I still love it. And it's like whenever things are feeling like really dark, that's the show that I turn to. And there's like a lot of other like contemporary like the thing that I hate that Netflix does is it does a season of all of these different like wonderful supernatural shows, and then because they're so big budget, it has to basically be as big as Stranger Things for them to keep doing the shows. So there's a few just like one-off seasons that are so good that got canceled, and it's like the bane of my existence. I'm thinking of like Lockwood and Company. I love that show. It's so good. I like it's kind of like it's like my perfect show, but I don't have a good ghost deck. Like I can't find a deck. I know they're out there. Like I've seen the ghost decks, but they're just they're not quite right. And that show gets like paranormal stuff like spot on. I love it so much. It's this like dystopian Britain where if ghosts are real and if they touch you, you die. And only children can see them and only some children, and they become like weapons of the state to try and like solve paranormal incidents, and they have like rapiers, and the soundtrack is like super like 80s cold wave, like Bauhaus and like The Cure, super goth. I love it. But I don't have a good ghost deck. And another really good one, it's another UK supernatural show, is called Half Bad. The Bastard Son and the Devil Himself. Another one that's just like so good. It's a little bit more uh it's a little bit violent, but it's really fun. So good. Anyways, teen supernatural I think is my favorite genre of TV show because they're so fun. And I think a long time ago I saw I think it was Julie at Peekaboo Rose and maybe a few other folks did a tag about picking out a deck for every Buffy character. And this was like running up to the release of the Buffy Tarot deck. I don't have the Buffy Tarot deck because I don't like the illustration style. I don't like the blocky purple and pink and reds. I don't love it. Like I can't. I couldn't do it. And so I was thinking about of all of the decks that I have, which deck would Buffy Summers choose? And I went for the Sistine Tarot because you know Buffy's a girly girl. Like yeah, she kills all the vampires and she is the chosen one, but she's kind of really girly. And there's something about this deck that is has a lot of like softness. It's also kind of got a lot of like pop culture references, and like we know Buffy is on top of that, but it's also kind of very playful in addition to having some like real depth. And like we've got our swords here, and there's kind of like there's something that's also like a little bit sharp, or there's a sense of grief in some of these cards. Like look at this pink coffin. Like yeah, I and there's a lot of kind of references to like there's a lot of crosses and references to kind of different aspects of Christianity, and I just think Buffy Summers would love this deck. Totally, like this would be her tarot deck. Like Willow would have a different one, but like there's something about it that yeah, I don't know, it just makes sense. And I just recently started a Buffy rewatch. You can always tell when I'm getting like really overwhelmed or like when I'm having a hard time when I start a Buffy rewatch, and it's like you put it on and then like within the formula there an evil arises, and then within the hour it's quelled and everyone is changed a little bit, but the team perseveres. And there's something just about that formula. Like there aren't of the supernatural dramas that are coming out today, it doesn't have the same I don't know. There's something kind of formulaic about it that I actually really love. I love this Cancer card. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense. But yeah, like this could totally be Buffy's bedroom. She's having one of her prophetic dreams, you know. Gotta go to the cathedral to like thwart the plot. I don't know, and make some quips along the way, and I don't know. That's what I chose. Anyways, so those are some of my like, those are the like favorites in terms of media. The next group of questions get a little bit kind of more biographical. So the first question is a deck that represents the decade you were born in. And I was born in the 90s, and I think the 90s was a great era for tarot decks. And there's a lot of decks that I have from the 90s, and a lot of decks that are like really drawing on 90s nostalgia. And like you can feel that a little bit in the Sistine Tarot. There's like a little bit of that going on. But the deck that I thought really epitomized the 90s for me is The Enchanted Tarot by Amy Zerner and Monty Farber. This is a fabric collage deck, and there's a lot of different versions of this deck. But this is the newest one, and I like it a lot. It came with these kind of matte gold edges. It's just a little guy, and it's like pocket sized. It's a little bit bigger, taller than a poker size card, but they're just really lovely and really sweet. And there's something kind of very, very cozy and very 90s about it. Before this edition came out, I had the one with the white borders, and the copy I had was like used, and when I got it, and it was very warped. And it was giving me a hard time, so I ended up trimming it to kind of the colored borders. And I now regret it a lot, because had I known that this edition was going to come out, I think I would have kept it. And I might have to like repurchase it with the white borders. I saw it. I've seen the white bordered one on Rose Bay's videos, and I think I missed them. But I still love this version, and I think it's really, really beautiful and really sweet. And I love I'm not usually like a pinks and purpley kind of girl. We'll see my favorite colors in a little bit here. But there's something that's like very cozy and very sweet, and very loving about this one. So for that reason, it's my 90s deck. Even though I do have a few decks that came out the year I was born that I was thinking about, but I was like, this is the one for me. All right, so the next questions are, we've got a deck that represents you as a child, as a teen, and as an adult. So one for each of those. So starting with the kids deck. So I think the deck I just showed has a little bit of that kind of like enchanted thing going on, but I had a really unique childhood is one way to put it. But I was raised Hare Krishna in Denver, Colorado. So I grew up in this like tiny little Hare Krishna enclave where everyone I knew, and everyone was involved in the temple, and I didn't really understand that the rest of the world kind of had no idea who Krishna was, and like all of my friends and like all of the games we played revolved around this like this thing that was really important to me as a 5-year-old. So for that reason, I chose the Krishna Consciousness Guidance cards. This is a deck that I picked up when I was doing fieldwork in India, and it's a really cute little one. So it's got this. I don't know if there's a way where you can buy it outside of India. I don't know if it's available, but it has this kind of like these little village style illustrations, and there's a keyword, and then a little phrase. And so these are all kind of like different episodes from either different parts of his life. I think the guidebook is divided up into his like childhood, and then his like later role in these kind of larger stories in Hindu mythology. And this wasn't quite the artwork that I grew up with. Like the temple room had all of these, Hare Krishna paintings on the walls that were a different art style. But I think if I was, if I was my 5-year old self, I think I really would have dug it, this deck. And yeah, so that was kind of my childhood. And we eventually kind of left that world, but it made a really big impact on me. And I'm now an anthropologist, and an anthropologist of religion, and I work in India, and that's kind of where that all kind of started for me. So that is the Krishna consciousness oracle, and like the peacock feather backs are just super super classic, for sure. I think there's a lot of other decks that I would have had fun with as a kid. I remember, I think one of the decks that my mom had was the Doreen Virtue, like angel healing cards and stuff like that. I remember, but I didn't get my first like tarot deck of my own until middle school, and my very first deck was the yellow box Rider Waite Smith. But for this next question is deck that represents you as your teen self. And for my teen self, I had to go with Crow's Magic. I was watching some of these tags, and like it seems like most of us who are here now had a goth phase, and I too had a teen goth phase. So, and Crow's Magic, it's a weirdo. It's not your standard goth. It's a little bit. It's like there's actual color in here and animals, and like I was a animal nerd. I was into that kind of thing, and I think would have really, I don't know, either loved or hated this deck, because of the like the cyber aspect, which I now think is just like super duper fun. But this was, I went to art school for middle school and high school. I did stagecraft and design, so I was a techie. So we wore all black, and you know, would run shows, and like I remember, when we did Aida the musical, that whole month that I was on crew for that, every day I would go to school with like the full Egyptian like painted eyes on myself and shit like that. And my best friend and I got like really into Finnish metal. So much so that we both ended up being exchange students in Finland for a year. So I lived in a town way up north called Rovaniemi, and did that whole thing. It was a whole vibe. So yeah, I was really into all of the Finnish bands, and this would have been like 2007, 2008. So that's but it was, I wasn't like a hot topic goth. I wasn't mall goth. It wasn't quite emo. It was like art school. So it was a little bit more artsy going on, and I feel like that I think this deck kind of does some of that. So that's my teen deck. I think that's right. And then the next deck is a deck that represents you as an adult. And the deck I have is, it was the deck that was like the most formative for me as an adult, and it's my favorite deck, so I couldn't really think of another deck. And that's the Spolia Tarot. So I recently was looking. I've kept I have a running list of my tarot collection, kind of organized by the year that I got that I picked up decks, and this is actually I think my after the yellow box RWS. This was my like the second deck I ever owned. This was my first indie deck. This was my first of like many decks, but I got this in 2018, and this is the deck that I taught myself how to read tarot on. I had used the yellow box, but it wasn't quite it. And then I had a friend who had Tarot del Fuego. And that was the first time that I had, because I grew up in a super new age context, right? I was very familiar with like new age style art, and it wasn't for me. I didn't dig it. And so seeing Tarot del Fuego, it was like very modern, very contemporary. It was doing this thing with tarot that I hadn't seen before. And it like I went on this wormhole of like what's all out there, and I found this one, and it's been my favorite ever since. So I think I picked good. And there's in terms of like how it represents my adult self, I like the I'm super into the collage. I like that there's like a lot of the figures still feel it doesn't feel super contemporary. A lot of these like black and white folks are these kind of line drawings. And then there's a lot of solid colors, which you don't actually see in a lot of tarot decks. So there's kind of like a real sophistication in this deck. And it's the guidebook that really I think makes this deck so special for me. Like I love this is the best little white book I think I've ever come across. And there's like a real kind of like, I don't know, sophistication in her prose, and it's just beautifully written and like so moving. And it was just like so formative. And I'd like to think that like now as like an academic who would love to kind of write things that eventually get distributed out into the world in some way, or have some kind of like more regular visual art practice. Yeah, this is just a really inspiring deck, and it kind of really fits my personal style a lot, and yeah, I love it so dearly. My dearest hope in the world is that I don't know why they won't just like kickstart another edition. Because it's ridiculous what it's going for these days. It's absolutely insane. And like if I don't get a job, I'm on the academic job market, so maybe if I don't get a job, I'll reach out to them and I'll be like, "Hey, I'll run this whole campaign for you guys and I'll do all the shipping if we can just make it happen." Anyways, back to the prompts. So the rest are a bunch of our of just like favorite things to do, and so let's see here. Favorite pastime. So I think it's a funny question because for most of us, like tarot is kind of like a main hobby, but I'm into a lot of like super crafty stuff. I make my own pouches, as you can see. You've seen some of the pouches here. I'll link to my Etsy shop. I mentioned I went to art school. I learned costuming, which is how I learned how to sew. Um, and so like my favorite thing to do in the world is to like put on an audiobook and like do a craft. And my audiobook stats are kind of nuts. I think in the past like um, 5 years, just on Audible, I've listened to like over like I think 3 months of audiobooks solid. Like the amount of time is just, yeah, it's wild. Anyways, and so like sewing is one of those things, but also just like little craft projects. And this is a deck mod that I did. This is Amy Zerner and Monty Farber's Creativity Oracle. Speaking of childhood, this is the Clap If You Believe in Fairies card. I don't know if you guys ever watched that like 90s movie. I think it's called like A Fairy Tale or just something like that, but it's this kind of like British show about like these girls who actually see fairies in their the bottom of their garden, and it was totally enchanting. But that's what this like was to me. So originally, this deck had terrible backs. It was like bright yellow and purple, and that it had the keyword and like a little definition on each of the backs. And it's called the Creativity Oracle, so it's meant to like inspire creativity. But I just felt like a lot of the keywords didn't match what was going on the front of the card at all. There's no relationship between the keyword and the artwork. And also, uh, the writing was just like really pithy, or just like super cheesy, or just like not really the kind of creative prompts that would be helpful in my own creative practice. So I did this whole I'll link the video if you haven't seen it already, but I rebacked the cards, and then I stamped. I used like a little doily and some spray paint, and I stamped this impression on all of the backs. So it kind of looks like it's this nod to the fronts, which are again Amy Zerner's kind of like collage style. And I went through and I named all of the cards, and I tried to give them names that resonated with me and also had something, had a relationship with the actual images, because I thought the images themselves were really cool. So that was like a really fun project. So that was a thing where, you put it on an audiobook, and then you're kind of like transported for hours, and you just do your little crafty thing. And I like, what better deck to kind of represent that than a little crafty deck project that I had fun making. So yeah, if you're curious and want to hear more about like my titles and the whole thing, you can check out that video. This one is just called Moon Things, because that's all you need to know about it. All right, so that was the Creativity Oracle. The next one is like vacation destination. And I've actually gotten to be like very lucky. I've traveled a lot, mostly for my studies and school. I lived in Finland for a while when I was 16. I've studied abroad in Scotland, and I've gotten to do like different kinds of research in places like Jordan. I did some archaeology there. I lived in India for a while, which is where I do a lot of my research. And then I also got to go to like Egypt the other year, which was like so incredible. But the holiday that I'm like craving right now, and I think it's all of these Michigan winters, is I would really love to go on like an all-American road trip through the Southwest. And there's something about like the just like the desert and the vistas and like wide open highways and like weird motels. And the deck I picked for that is the Telesma Tarot. Stay with me here. I just feel like this is like a really colorful deck, but there's a lot of like you can see the cactuses here. There's a lot of nods to the American Southwest, which is why I've picked it for this prompt. And let's see here. I'm going to try and find, well, we've got this Chariot, which is like a great card for a road trip, right? But this is my favorite card in the deck. I eventually want to get this as a print from her, but there's something about this card that like this is the vacation I want right now. Like I want the cheesy motels and the truck stops and like just like the wide open canyons. And I just want to feel like yeah, I just need a desert summer, you know? And there's yeah, lots of desert stuff going on there. And you know, it being the Six of Swords is also the card about just like getting out of somewhere. And it's kind of getting time for me to get out of get out of Michigan pretty soon. So, you know, hopefully that'll happen and maybe I can have a all-American road trip. All right. I think the next question I'm going to do is your favorite deck with your favorite flower. And I did this one a little bit differently. I know there's a million decks with roses out there, and people were showing off a lot of their rose decks. My favorite flower is actually the poppy. So I've got a poppy here, and then I was like, okay, what decks do have poppies in them? And I'm like, I know, I've got to have a bunch of them. And then I just like kept kept finding more and more poppies out there. First in just my some of them in collage, and some of them just in other little decks. And I kept pulling them out and pulling them out. And now I have all of these lovely little poppy cards. And so these are my decks. These are my cards that have my favorite poppies. So this is Mother Witch, another like desert card. And I'm pretty sure they're poppies. Debatable. We have them in the Ritual Tarot, the Seven of Cups, Tantric Dakini Oracle. I love this card. I think this card is so beautiful. I would hang this on my wall for sure. This is a little oracle by the same artist that made the Black Lily Tarot. This is Spolia. I'm pretty sure these are poppies in the Empress card. And then here we have, I love the color of this one in particular, that kind of like purple. Beautiful. Voyager Tarot. And then Dirt Gems. So those are my favorite poppies. I've got a pair of poppies as a tattoo. I just think they're so beautiful. And I wish there was a deck, that had poppies running through them. Maybe someday. Maybe someday there'll be one. I'll keep my eye out. Or maybe I'll have to just make it a poppy deck. Would be super cute. And then just a honorable mention. I got this deck recently, and it has one of the most beautiful flowers I've ever seen. I just think this card is so pretty. Like, I think this is from the Hondel Tarot. It's been around for ages. I recently just picked up a vintage copy, and I love this flower. I'm not sure what he is. Not a poppy. I don't think it's a rose. I'm not really sure. But it's beautiful. So this is like one of my favorite flowers in a deck. Period. So I thought, I should bring that up too. Okay, a few questions left. The next one is your favorite color. So, the deck I have for that is this one. This is the Margaret Peterson. Um, and this is the edition with my favorite color in it. And my favorite color is this color. I'm a fan of these like burgundies, deep reds, of wine or maroon or whatever you want to call it. That's my favorite color, and I also love this goldenrod color with it. My teenage bedroom, I think the walls and the ceiling were all this like dark dark color. It was very cave-like, and then I had like two walls that was this the same like golden color. So it was very it was very angsty in there, but it also had the colors of like a Buddhist monk's robes. And then it had all of my all of my emo posters and all of that. And I had like a leopard print bedspread. It was a vibe. Anyways, I love that the Margaret Peterson decided to change the borders because it changed the deck, and I like this color a lot, and I would love to see more decks with this color borders. I think it would look great on like I would love a version of the Tantric Dakini Oracle with borders this color. I think it would be so cool. Anyways, so that's my favorite color. I'm not the art, this isn't my usual style, but just the colors from this kind of like these earthy tones um and the borders really do it for me. All right. The next question is like favorite musical genre, and right now I'm into a lot of stuff, but I guess my favorite genre these days is kind of like I'm really into like kind of neo psychedelic um uh kind of tunes like sludge metal, doom metal, that kind of thing. And so I brought out Caitlin Madison's tarot deck because this one feels like it totally has that kind of neo psychedelic vibe. Like her art style is very much those kind of like 70s band like concert posters. You know what I'm talking about? And yeah, I like tunes that are kind of like very jammy, very atmospheric, and also kind of heavy. I'm into that right now. I think one of my I think on my Spotify last year. I don't know, it's always kind of embarrassing. I listen to some weird stuff, but I think my top album from last year was King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard had the Petro Dragonic Apocalypse album that has that like crazy long title, but it's kind of it's a heavier album, and it's kind of all about like what if the world ended in this apocalypse of this like dragon born from like all of the oil consumption and its climate catastrophe. And like the music video for Gila Monster is like super camp. It's so campy. It's so cheesy. It's silly, and it's just like this heavy banger. And it's so good, but it's very humorous, and yeah. So that's kind of what I've been into. So there's that. I think Caitlin Madison may have also done like some artwork for Chelsea Wolfe, and I originally found this deck through Chelsea Wolfe's Instagram. So she's another one of my One of my like top artists probably. So that's the Caitlin Madison tarot. All right, last three questions. Oh boy. So, what is your favorite smell? And the deck I picked for that was Leonora Carrington. Because this deck itself is scented, I wish you could. I'm holding this up so you can waft the scent. It's not going to work, but it's kind of this. Let me give a sniff. I don't know. There's something. I love the smell of this deck. It's. There's something kind of very. I'm not good at describing scents necessarily, but there's something that's a little bit magical. I don't know. It's not super floral or anything. I like really kind of earthy scents, those kind of like bass notes of like amber or sandalwood or oud or those like really those like fragrant woods. And then it's a little bit spicy, but it's also very it's got some top notes that I don't really know what they are. But yeah, I like scents that I'm not a big I don't like scents that are too sweet or too floral. I like things that are just like a little bit spicier. And this is just like such a magical deck. So there's I like things that are a little bit have a little bit of that like mystical allure, like a little bit of that kind of like intentional kind of crafting. So this is a really as soon as I saw the scent prompt, I was like I can't really choose anything else because I also think it's so cool to like come up with a signature perfume for a deck. Like what? So cool. People are doing some cool things out in the world, you know? People are doing some really cool things. And then the last two are favorite food and favorite beverage. And my favorite kind of food, perhaps not so surprising. I love some Indian food. It's my fave. And I picked the Kazanlar Tarot. First of all, this isn't just like a an Indian deck. The creator himself was Persian and lived in Hungary. But this deck is like kind of very multi-ethnic. But once we get into the minors, one of the suits we've got some like Persian stuff, we've got Hungarian, Egyptian, and then we've got stuff from Hinduism. So there's like, this feels like a very multicultural kind of deck, and also like each of these places has great food. So like if all of my decks made a meal, I know that whichever one of this deck served up, like it would be so good. It would be really good. So like I'm a fan of having kind of a big tally with just a lot of little things and eating with your hands and all of it. So that's the deck I picked for that. And then the last question is favorite beverage. So these days, I can't do any caffeine, guys. I haven't been able to do caffeine in a long time. Like I think I've gone almost 10 years without any caffeine, which is wild. But I love some tea, and so I have to do herbal teas. So my favorite tea is ginger turmeric. And I make I make it with I don't know if you can hear my cat just running around. That's her. She's getting excited. Maybe she just had some caffeine. I don't know. But I make a little oat milk turmeric powder, and then some ginger peach turmeric tea bags. It's good. It's what I go for, and I feel like it's kind of hippy dippy though, and like the turmeric. So I thought of the Tantric Dakini Oracle. So this is my trimmed copy, but like this feels like a turmeric ginger tea. Like I don't know. I guess like it's gotta be, right? Um, there's our poppy. So yeah, that's my favorite beverage. So that is that. I think I made it through all 16 prompts. That was a lot of decks. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll leave you all with some lovely poppies to look at. So thanks for tuning in. I will see you all next time. Bye for now.